Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're listening to the SANE Show, the show about nothing and everything. I'm your host, Cliff. I have a really special guest joining us today. He is a front of house engineer and production manager. He has worked with the likes of Owl City, Christina Perri, Demi Lovato, Sia, St. Vincent, and Jai Wolf, among many others. Adam Jackson. How are you doing today, Adam?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on to the SANE Show. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to have this conversation. It's been a couple of weeks. I took a break, so I'm super excited. And just doing that introduction, I'm really amped up right now. So really excited to jump into this conversation today.
Thank you, man.
Really quick, before I introduce the topics, you guys know how I like to do. I want to shout out to all the listeners in all 60 plus countries. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Thank you for continuing to like, share, subscribe, listen to the show, do all that great stuff to help elevate the SANE Show platform. If you're listening and you don't already follow us, be sure to check us out on Instagram and Twitter at SANE_show. That's SANE, SANE_show. And then you can find us on Facebook, The SANE Show. Again, on Facebook, that's The SANE Show. So today we're going to be talking about live audio engineering. And then we're also going to have a conversation about the things we do to succeed. Following that, we're going to have an interview with you, Adam, so that the listeners can learn more about you, the things you do, and all the cool things that go along with that. So let's go ahead and hop right into it with the first topic, live audio engineering. I have novice level experience doing this. And, like I mentioned to you in our prior conversation, I think when a lot of people think of an audio engineer, they think of the sound guy. And it's a lot more to
That's the
to
derogatory term.
Right. I'm like, they do much more than just connect the cables and, make sure the mics and stuff are on. Like it's a whole entire process. Especially
I will say there is absolutely a difference between a audio engineer and a sound guy. It's like a common joke. It's pretty funny. But some audio guys listening to this right now are going to be laughing.
Right. Exactly. I would go to say I'm more of a sound guy compared to you.
Oh yeah. So, oh hey man, it's to each their own.
Right. And so you guys carry a lot of responsibility in doing the work that you do. If you could, I would like for you to give the listeners, especially because we got a lot of people that listen to this that are concert goers, and even myself that's gone to a concert. Like before really getting into this business, I never really thought about that guy that's positioned in the middle of the crowd at the soundboard. A lot of people don't really think about them, and I mean really because they're focused on the show anyway, and that's where you want their attention to be. But I just would like you to give them a little bit of insight as to who that person is, what their responsibility is, and how big of an impact they have on the production.
Like you said, it's a lot of responsibility. It's something that is honestly, it's an honor to be in the position. You're really in charge. You have a lasting impact on the quality of the show and specifically the quality of the audience. I think it's really important to kind of walk into every show with that headspace of you're kind of looking around before the show, and I'm out there usually half an hour before the show. Our the house lights go down and the show's getting going, and you're kind of getting set. I try to take a moment to kind of look around and feel the vibe of the room and see how excited people are and all that stuff. And you're there to please them. In return, what you're doing is you're gaining more and more respect from the band and the artist and all that stuff, because word obviously travels back. And these days with social media and all this stuff and people taking videos and all that stuff, it's like a joke to guys and girls in my position to you watch these social media videos on these like blown out camera phones, and you're hoping and wishing your mix still sounds good. And I'm always, it's funny when you're like, wow, this camera sounds awful, but my mix sounds great, so we're good. And you're like, where was this guy standing in the pit right in front of the stage? Okay, it's still, or is this person in the balcony and it sounds good up there too? But honestly, just really to answer your question, like we are in charge from start to finish of everything that you're hearing as a concert goer, and you're standing there in the audience, you got a beer or whatever in your hand, and you're just there to have a good time. You want to be able to close your eyes and hear what you want to hear. And it's my responsibility to close my eyes too and be familiar with what is at my fingertips, so to speak, with, the mixer, and you're kind of this grand connection and to what is happening on stage and the energy of the band, and you're just trying to, like, I've always considered myself completely not in a selfish or big-headed way, and you just have to kind of understand this if you're hearing me, is like, I consider myself the fifth member of the band, so to speak. I consider myself another one of them. I am constantly going up to the band after the show and each member and talking about this guitar amp and this setting, and in sound check we tweaked this keyboard patch, and it really worked in the show. And I'll sit with Emily Frost, my keyboard player, and Christina Perri, and we'll like literally sit there and hug and jump up and down like, yeah, it worked. And you can like feel, and you're commiserating, and and then the next night you're going and trying different stuff, and I don't know, there's something really special about me being so like with them. And like we talked about, like I'm very close with the band and the artists, and that's my thing, and it's what I like doing because I'm a musician and I get it, and I can talk to them in the way that they understand, and it's not this disconnected thing. But then the show starts, and I am like, I'm 100+ feet out away from the stage, and I'm very disconnected from them. But now I'm still trying to like bridge this middle gap between the audience and us, and just have it just be this kick-ass rockin' show, and just feel the room, constantly feeling the room, feeling the audience, just trying to. That's the goal. I mean, it doesn't always happen that way, but that's on the perfect nights. That's like, you're just like running on all cylinders, and you know that every move you're making out there, and every big reverb you do or delay send, or any that you turn the kick drum and the snare up on this song, because it's just this like just sick beat going on with the drummer, and you're just totally vibing, and I'm responsible for that. So it's awesome. It's just like a great feeling. There's bad nights too, but hey, everybody has bad nights, and you try to not make them so bad. But there's nights where things just don't go right. You just learn. But it's an honor to be in the position, and I'm super grateful to just have the career that I've had with the artists. I tend to think that I work pretty hard for my artists, because it's truly, you only get one chance, and some of these artists only get one tour sometimes to like prove that it's all right. So trying to make a good show, work with everybody, and that's the goal. Just a piece of the puzzle, though, at the end of the day, but very important nonetheless.
Right. It's great that you talk about the experience, because I know what I found very interesting is how you were explaining to me about the artists and them putting together their set list, and then you guys going through rehearsal and making sure that everything is in sync, from the sound and the lighting and even the effects, all of that kind of stuff. If you could give us a little bit of insight into that process, everything that goes into that, because I just think that's very cool. Because I never thought of it on that level, like how it's really in sync. I'm just thinking like, okay, we're gonna do this, and you guys just cue it up whatever night, like, and you might switch the colors or whatever. But it's really like, no, all of that stuff is planned down to the T, from my understanding and what you told me about this.
Yeah, and I mean, I think what most people might not know is that when a tour is getting planned, that plan, and I'm sure you've talked to Javier, and obviously Lenny, it's like that tour starts, the dialogue starts 6 months before we even hit the road. So there's a lot of discussion about, if the tour is starting out because the artist released a record, we're starting from there as an idea. And depending on whatever artist it is, they're all different levels of involved. You're covering bases where you look around and see that bases aren't covered. You're immediately a team. It's a team effort from the beginning. And how my team works with Javier and Lenny and those guys is we get everybody involved as early as possible. So that way, I think we were joking around before, like, we'll just leave those moments available where we can have our serious discussions on the phone and our conference calls, and we talk about this and that, and here's this idea, here's that idea, or some of our best ideas that come from sitting at the table having sushi one night, and someone just spitballs an idea that literally spins into a gem that a few months later we're doing our first show and we're doing a version of that thing that we were talking about. And it's really cool to be able to have those things come to fruition. That's the magic in the whole process, is that you're starting from a little tiny nugget of information. Again, just the artist just recorded this record, the album's out, or it's coming out. Usually, we're when they're like about to finish the record, we're usually like starting to plan the tour, because then it's after the record is like in production and it's being made and about to be released. It's still a month or two ish before before things start rolling. So in that time, you're working out budgets and all this stuff and trying to look into what kind of gear we can rent, what kind of transportation we're in, and this and that. But the whole other side of it is once we've got all those pieces locked in and we're now to the day where we're at day one of, rehearsals, that is already structured. So, like most of the time we won't have the artist in the building playing music for the first like week, like mostly with like Sia and St. Vincent and Christina Perri and like all those, like we plan out 1, 2, 3 weeks of rehearsal time. So those are structured where you're not starting like kind of balls to the wall from the beginning. You're building it. We need to build this show, and then we need to work on just like the production elements for a few days, 3, 4, 5 days. And then we need to bring in the band and only work with the band. And bands usually have music directors who is usually a member of the band who is kind of the leader, who can start and stop the songs. And hey guys, we need to work on this part. Let's go back. And they're kind of the ones running the show on stage. And so as a front of house engineer, my main thing is I work with the music director always, whether it's Wayne Miller, my bass player and music director for Christina Perri, or Steve Rodriguez for Demi Lovato, or whoever it is, or Annie Clark with St. Vincent, who's just kind of her own music director. Everybody kind of has their own, again, those bases that need to be covered. You're just there to like, to be like, dude, I'm here. Let's do this, like whatever you need. And let's just make this happen. So that's its own journey. Before the tour or the first show even starts is such an intense journey.
All right, we're back. Now we're going to talk about things we do to succeed. I listened to your TED Talk, and it was pretty awesome. You offered up a lot of insight that I thought was great, especially thinking about what we discussed on this show in prior episodes, from, networking to how to conduct yourself in this industry, especially, that was a conversation Lenny and I had on multiple occasions, actually. And also the things you need to do to succeed. And that was something that you really touched on, because that was not really something I've ever really talked to anybody about on this show. And I found that interesting because it made me think, especially you were talking about in this business, it doesn't operate on normal hours, right? It's not like a 9 to 5. There's going to be times
No,
you get calls late at night, early in the morning, somebody needs your help, and you never know what opportunity is going to present itself at the end of the day. And obviously listening to you tell your story and illustrate your journey, it just made me sit back and reflect, because I've had those moments. Even when I was called and I didn't do anything, I was just there.
Yeah.
But I met people too. More often than not, there was something to be gained just being in the space, just being in the room and observing at the very least.
Or how about just being available? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
how about just being available? And it doesn't, that you can take that however it means to you, but just like being there for someone about something, just being there just means a lot to life and to people and all that stuff. And those are the things that I've found as like a success point in my life, is like, that's why I love when I start working for an artist. Julia Michaels is another prime example. She's a total sweetheart, amazing, wonderful female vocalist, young, who's a pop singer, who's amazing writer and writes for a bunch of people. But like, I kind of started with her a couple of years ago with just she's kind of coming out as her own artist and her own singer. And she was very reserved, and that's no secret. I mean, that she talks about that openly, but she was a very kind of a little bit timid and shy. And I don't think she really approved of herself at the beginning the way that I totally thought she deserved to be treated, if I were her. And I just kind of like, I don't know, just kind of like Big Brother tried to put my wing around her and just like pull her in and just kind of be like, listen, dude, like, this is what's up. And here's my little tidbit of how you can succeed, how we can do better. If you want to, whatever tips I'd have. Not only did it help her performances and help her with her confidence, but it grew our relationship as friends. And you just like gain this love for that person. And that happens with all the artists. I feel like Sia and I have that same relationship too, where I walk into the room these days, and after almost 5 years of straight being with her, I can tell that she immediately just kind of feels comfy, like seeing me there. That's something that you gain that trust over time, because these people are putting their careers in your hands. So being that kind of positive energy, and it really it just goes so far. You're there because you care and you want to be. I want to be on every gig that I'm on. That's why I choose what I do, and I stay with people when they're fantastic. I work tirelessly.
It's interesting you talk about being available, because I mean, that ultimately what it is. As you're talking and I'm listening, some things were going through my mind, because I think about, as I make my journey in this business and work my way up the ranks doing what I do. And I was having a conversation with my writer about this earlier, as far as just how this industry is the deeper you get into it, the more you become understanding of why it operates in certain ways, in terms of like not being like people not being able to come in so quickly and just shoot up to the top, right? And why is it so rigorous to make it to certain levels? And because like a lot of people put a lot into this, right? There's a lot riding on this stuff, and I like to look at it as like you got to prove yourself, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, anybody can do this, but this is hard work. You have to be really passionate about it. So when I think about like being available, like, yes, because it also speaks to reliability, right? Can I trust this guy? Is this someone that I can call on? Should I
Yeah.
need something? Like, I don't. It's the littlest of things. Like, I literally told my team, I said, we're going to deal with a lot of mess as we go up. I said it's cool, but it makes us. But it because, as I said a few episodes ago, I told somebody, I said, it's not about keeping people out of the business. It's about letting the right people in, because
Yeah.
we don't want to just work with anybody. Like, because we work hard, we're passionate about what we do. And so we have to make
Absolutely.
sure we vet out the right people to make sure we're bringing in the right individuals that value this opportunity. It's just like Lenny says, what he was saying about, it's a privilege.
It is.
So,
And you know what? When you're that, I'll say too. I mean, Lenny Rogers is brilliant. I mean, the guy is just a bag of wisdom. He'll probably listen to this and thought I was going to say bag of something else, but he love you, Lenny. No, but seriously, the people that don't have that mindset of it is a privilege to be here, it's an honor to be here. It sounds cheesy, but like, I don't care. You don't understand. There are a lot of men and women out there, and boys and girls, that are trying to get your gig. Don't ever let that be the devil on your shoulder. Like, don't let that go away, because that's only going to fuel that fire as you go along. Going to be like, you know what? Again, in a non-selfish way, I have to remind myself every time I go and work with someone new that I have to meet, and kind of, you restart all this, like the trust that you just mentioned, the vibe, which is massive, and all these things. Like, I have to remind myself that it is like, you really only get one shot, and it's such a small world out there, that I found that, like, you got to keep your image up. And I don't mean image like, again, some self-centered way. I just mean, like, if you're going to be a good person, just be a good person. And if you're going to be like this grumpy person who just like is there because somehow they fell into it, I wish you'd go away. But like, just know your role and know whatever. But there's people like me and Lenny and Javier and Marco Gamboa and Chris Smith and, Brooke Llewellyn and all these people. We get together and we get these, we're all in charge of different departments, but when we get all of us are at a round table and we are like just firing on all cylinders, what if this, what if that, what if we tried this, what if we tried that? And we've been lucky enough to be in charge of a lot of productions where we can kind of take, with all due respect, we can take a lot of the creative control ourselves and dictate it. So, you got a lot of power in your hands, because you're making a lot of risks, and a lot of money is at stake, just on all angles. So the pressure's on, and yeah, it's just it's a really interesting kind of dynamic there.
yeah, for sure. That is very true.
Yeah.
All right, now for the final segment, the interview, going to ask you some questions so that the listeners can learn more about you and the things that you do and all the exciting things that go along with that. So I want to go ahead and fire off with this first question. You're passionate about what you do, as we've heard throughout this recording. What are a few things that keep you excited?
I think just the opportunity to go to all places around the world and kind of bring, when we're traveling and we're touring on it with a production, with a show. It's no different than a theatrical production. It's gonna, whatever theater it's in, the set's gonna look the same. So we're living on that rule to be able to take it all over the world and show people of all kinds what you're doing, and to feel a very similar response of joy and happiness from all parties. I don't know. There's really nothing more special than that. It's like this universal language that we're all speaking, that we all appreciate, that doesn't really need much explanation if you just have an imagination. So you're always trying to bring that kind of, that wonder and excitement and just that beauty. I mean, it's not so much like I want someone walking out of my shows that's like, all pumped up and like, yeah, let's go party. Like, I want people walking out being like, that first St. Vincent tour, when she was doing her solo thing back in 2017, we had a very special show that was built grassroots from the ground up, that all the artistic portions to just every piece, and to take that all over. And we started that in Japan. I mean, our first show was in Tokyo at Summer Sonic Festival. It's just a mind trip, dude. It's like you can't explain it. Like, how do you have this much power to do this to people and be able to do this? And at the end of the day, we're just all a bunch of human beings, like, just
Right.
making it happen. A mixture of like emotion and technology and all this just craziness and the chaos I was saying before. It really breeds this beautiful thing. So, I mean, how do you not stay excited about that if you're
Right.
really into it? It is tough. It's, I will say too, like it is very tough. There's travel involved. There's all, being away from my family. There's so many dark sides of that moon, but you really just find the best moments. And that is the stereotypical, like the 90 minutes, as I always say, which is the show to 2 hours, whatever it is. But that 90 minutes, it's like, it's all about, you could be having the worst day and just things are not working, whatever. But when that show starts and you're in the zone, it ain't about you anymore. Like, it's not
Right.
about me. I want to just be enjoying it myself. I take a lot of pride in the fact I have been I'm so grateful that I've been able to work with the artists that I have been, because I've enjoyed every single one of them. I've done a lot of gigs with a lot of big and small artists, kind of one-off stuff. And it's like, I'm not going to pursue this. This is not going to be my cup of tea. But the artists that I'm grateful and proud to have worked with, they're into it. They're doing shows because they want to be doing shows. I'm not traveling 3,000 miles away from my family to fly to this one state to then fly somewhere else to be in it, to just like, whatever. It's just like,
Right.
what's that all about? But yeah, it's a passion. You got to enjoy it, and you got to stay excited. You got to just, it shows when you're like living with all these people. They can tell if you're excited or if you're just like, get me out of here. So really.
Speaking of the fans, as a front of house audio engineer, how is it maintaining focus while being positioned in the middle of a crowd of noisy fans and making sure that they're still engaged with the performance?
Oh man, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, they're all animals, all of them. You're like dodging beach balls or dodging like beer cans flying through the audience
Oh
over your like
gosh.
$250,000 audio console you got. No. I mean, in all honesty, I have had shows like that. Trust me, I've worked with some punk rock acts. It happens. But no, you're in control, man. I do truly think that myself and the lighting operator, the lighting director, who is usually the person that's sitting behind me. They're usually kind of like up on a little riser, and they're usually sitting at their console. There's a lot going on, moving parts. They're kind of focused. They've got headphones on with microphones that talk to all the spotlight operators in the building. And so all the spotlights you see flashing on stage, that person behind me is not only directing them and whose lights are going on who every song and the whole song, they are also controlling all the lights that are up there flashing on stage. So between myself, who's in charge of all the live sound that you're hearing, and that person, we are in control. So we can set the mood however we want. And if a show is just so flying on all cylinders, usually like we did Lollapalooza with St. Vincent, and it's just, I mean, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people were there. It's just like, it was firing on all cylinders just from the get-go, right from the start. It was like the crowd was like, hell yeah, let's do this. Annie was so into it. Everybody was just ready to go. It was a great set. I got to a halfway point in that show, maybe even a little earlier. And I just remember turning to a couple friends that were with me out at front of house. I just was like, here we go. And I just kind of turned the whole mix up just a little bit, just a couple decibels. If you're not an audio person, just you go from like 13 to 14 on your receiver. But it was just enough of like a energy boost that you could seriously, like, I literally watched 50,000 people around me just all of a sudden just start like dancing even harder and just like vibing harder. And it was like, dude, holy, like, you just can't explain that kind of power that's in your hands. I will say I've had moments, I just want to like throw this in here, that I've had moments where things have gone terribly wrong. It's not your fault. It's just technology. I've had like the whole show kind of quit in the middle of a song, like the whole PA shuts off in front of a festival.
Oh,
I mean, again, it wasn't my equipment. So, you know, there's a lot in the chain going down of like how all these things work. It could be power issues. It could be all. So you're always dealing with the stress of all of that while you're trying to like stay focused and stay emotional while you're mixing. But yeah, you're trying to stay with it, because again, I'll go back to what I said before. It's about the crowd and it's about the audience and what these people have paid to see. And you want them to walk out of there wanting to come back next time. That's the number one goal. If the artist wants that, if you feel that too, you got to be pretty proud of yourself to feel good about that. And don't let anybody ever make you feel ashamed of feeling that way. I love when I'm just like literally sitting with the artist and we're both like as excited about stuff because we've worked really hard. At the end of the day, we're just emotional little children underneath it all. We're all very
right.
vulnerable and it's a very vulnerable business. No one wants to get back talked or talk crap about. So stakes are high, dude. Stakes are high, 100%.
So during your TED Talk, you mentioned that you study traditional music, like many others in the industry. And I mean, many others. I think everybody in the business that I've spoken to on this show was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Why do you think many people that study music with no intentions, again, very common, no intentions of going into the industry, all of a sudden take that path?
For me, it was like I was in a band all through high school and kind of after high school for a couple of years. We recorded a couple records. The one before I went down to Full Sail and decided to study recording engineering, like the record that we were working on 6-8 months prior to me leaving for school. And after, before I had decided I wanted to go and pursue this, we were just in the studio every day. And I thought basically that like, I wasn't hearing what I really wanted to hear. And I thought that after watching this person and kind of studying what they did and all that stuff, I thought that I could, I was like, I could probably do this better. I mean, you kind of think that way when you're a dumb 19-year-old kid, you're just like, I could do this better. And but of course, then I go to school and we're like learning it and you're really diving in and you're like, oh, okay, this is okay.
Right.
This is hard work. But yeah, I grew up playing saxophone and I always joke like my brother picked up a baseball glove and I picked up a saxophone. Like that's just kind of how it worked. But I had always like since from a very young age, loved like the Beach Boys and all these things. And so I had an ear just period. I mean, like I just had the ear for what I was listening to. I knew I could deconstruct stuff and just like listen and sit there and listen to music at night. And just, I knew all the parts and pieces. I could hear all the specific, like I'd listen to Green Day Dookie when it came out and I'd listen to Trey's like hi-hat and his snare drum and just be like, oh dude, wow, this is intense. Like it's insane. But I can hear all the specific pieces. So I think, the natural occurrence is I want to play music. You want to play in front of crowds. You want to like meet girls. You want to do, you want to do that. But I was never, while I consider myself a decent musician, I was not destined to be like a fluent player and really study and then ultimately join a bigger band, or I teach lessons, or all which are admirable, but I just didn't see myself doing that stuff. So I really wanted to go into the mixing thing and the live sound thing, as I say in my TED Talk, it really just kind of fell into my lap. But that goes into the whole kind of being available and eager and just doing it kind of vibe. So I also think that I work with people that don't come from music at all, that work side by side with me, who, some audio technicians who are the guys that are setting up all the PA and the speakers and tuning those and pointing them in the right directions. And they're doing all these very specific things. Of course, it's way more complicated than that. I'm just trying not to be too scientific about it, but they have an enormous, that's another person who I see on the exact same level as someone like me. It's just the team effort of it all. But people don't come from necessarily being a musician or whatever, but they love music. I like to think that people like that just never, maybe their parents were just not musicians. And of course they love art and they love whatever. So, but they just never pushed literally, like, even just like giving the kid a clarinet in middle school and having them just like be in band. You know what I mean? Like, it's sometimes they just never had that opportunity. So they didn't become a musician, but it doesn't matter. Honestly, at the end of the day, dude, if you got a good idea and you're working hard and you're putting in the effort in a team, your voice is going to get heard, and you don't need to be ashamed of if you're a virtuoso like the guy next to you or not. And that's one thing that I love about this business is everybody just, as emotional as it gets sometimes, like everybody just has respect if you're just like, you're on the same wavelength and you're fighting for the same goal. I mean, I hate the saying of like, we're going to war together, because we're not, but like we are fighting for the same thing here. We will fight to the bitter end to get this thing just running on all cylinders. So if you have that kind of vibe and that's where you come from, then you'll succeed. Hopefully it's not a deterrent to a lot of people. I mean, it's, that like, if you don't come from that, you can still, a lot of people aren't musicians that just have good ears. They don't even know it. That's interesting too. So yeah, but
that's so true.
I'm grateful I just picked the path. I decided one day, I was like, you know what, I'm going to focus less on performance and more on what's going on behind the scenes here and taking the other vantage point. So it's been, thank God.
So my last question to you, as you continue getting more opportunities, the size of the venues had began to increase. And so how much more would you say is left to accomplish after putting on concerts in places like Madison Square Garden and even the Hollywood Bowl and in front of crowds as large as 90,000 fans? What's left for you to do?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I've probably mixed maybe 4 or 5 different artists at the Hollywood Bowl. I'll say that because you mentioned it. Every show that I do there, regardless of the fact that it's where I'm standing in the same place that I was the time before, it's a whole new experience. It's a whole new crowd. It's a whole new vibe, just a whole new thing. So, I mean, there's some veterans, friends that I have that have done these enormous venues for decades, hundreds of times, and you're still faced with the same challenges, whether it is 90,000 people or 200 people in the room. You're still just like, it's still a struggle either way to just like make sure you're up to par with what you're trying to do. So to think of it that way, yeah, I'm here again and I'm playing to this amount of people again, but it's a whole new set of people and a whole new set of rules and a whole different time in the year. And there's so many variables that are always shifting. So yeah, you lose that thing. And it's also cool to just literally like, hey, if you're with the same artist and you're back on the next tour in that same city and maybe you're playing that same venue, like, that's pretty cool. You're just bringing a new show and you're seeing a lot of the same kind of faces, so to speak. There's something really cool in that. You're always just finding those bits and pieces. But I'll say, honestly, it's like, I finally got to mix Gillette Stadium about 5 years ago. And I mean, that's, I don't know, 80,000 or something like that. And I mean, you're just freaking out. I've done enough shows that I should not have to like worry too much about it these days, but like you still get that anxiety and kind of that feeling. So it's great. It's like a great headspace to be in, to just keep it positive all the time and enjoy what you're doing.
So would it be fair to say that you've done it all, just about?
I mean, there's still so much more to do, but I'll say I've done a lot and I've definitely checked off a lot of lists on that bucket, I should say. And, again, every show is its own set of excitement. So there's really, I don't know, I don't mean to ruin the question, but like I don't really look at it like this stream of kind of consciousness stream, going throughout my career. Like, it's just like, if I'm literally about to mix a show on Saturday, I'm really focused about that show and in the moment. And you got to be just like in the moment. You know what I mean? Like all the time, you got to just be in this thing in the moment, because the moment in the live game, which is like different than how I started in the studio game, the live, there is no stop and rewind and, oh, let's try that again. You are given one chance And there's no postponing and there's no delaying and there's no anything. Like, you have to go do it. So the pressure's on and you got to be ready for it. You got to be suited up, ready for battle for sure.
I like that approach to it. It's almost like an actor. A lot of people like, I don't do it for Emmys or Oscars. I just do it because I love it.
Truly.
So I'm not thinking about the awards and all the accolades. So I certainly agree with you on that one.
You have to just treat every show like it's your only opportunity to impress, because it could be the one bad show that somehow goes back to kind of bite you in the butt. You really have to enjoy the moment. So yeah.
That's so true.
Straight
but
truth.
I really enjoyed having you on the SANE
Thanks,
Show
man.
as a guest. It definitely was a pleasure. Very insightful. Couldn't think of a way to come back, a better way to come back. But yeah, like I said, really enjoyed it. You're an awesome guy. Being on the same team as Javier and Lenny, I expected nothing less of a great show. Anyway, so thank you,
Absolutely.
Adam, for taking time out of your schedule to come on the SANE Show today.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. It was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely want to have you back on the show at
Anytime,
some point
man.
in the future.
Hey, we should do a big group session one of these times. Tell stories. That's I'm sure we'd do that.
I'm not even gonna lie to you. I already thought about it.
Might have to be a paid subscription though. I don't know.
that would be awesome. That would be so awesome. But yes, thank you again. Like I said, I truly appreciate
Thank you, man.
it.
It's an honor. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Listeners, be sure to continue listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. Again, appreciate you guys. And you guys are listening to the SANE Show, the show about nothing and everything. And until next time, we're out.